All right, here we go then. This week's Talking Points with David Yates and Jerry McGrath. Bit of a surprise to me this week. Here we go. Right. Grand National entries. There are fewer of them. Most notably, there are very few trained in Britain. Just 31, 6 of whom are yet to qualify. David Yates, 2 minutes.
Yes, this is a disappointing development this week, isn't it? 31 of the 85 trained in Britain. Some very interesting comments from Martin Greenwood, the Grand National handicapper this week, who described it as the continuation of the demise of British jump racing. Very strong words from a
Big
punchy...
Ben chiming 13 times, he said.
Yes, that's right. Punchy and passionate, as Martin always is. But it's hard to disagree. He pointed to the fact that Irish trainers tend to be a bit more innovative in the way that they campaign their horses in handicaps like the National and the Cheltenham Festival, that they go there more as lightly raced, improving horses. There are obviously more 150 type chasers in Ireland than there are in Britain these days, and the 50% ratio is going to go to about 63-37, I think, this year.
Jerry?
Yeah, it's a tough one, I suppose. Really, when the entries came out this week, obviously you're kind of scanning through to see which ones
should be there that aren't.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, and I suppose then with the scenario of Sam Thomas's horse, which probably just doesn't help the scenario.
I will do it. Not qualified yet.
Yeah, which is like obviously that rule is put in place to try keep kind of the race in a good way, that horse have enough experience. But I suppose the flip side of this is that when there's a horse like that, which he ticks 90% of the boxes, isn't qualified, it just kind of looks a bit like we're shooting ourselves in the foot a small bit. But I suppose the rules are there. I don't think they can be seen to be bending the rule for one horse. Or it's just a pity, and it's just unfortunate the horse won't get another run over fences between now and Cheltenham and Aintree even to qualify.
So a little rule tweaking, do you think?
I don't know. Yeah, I suppose the powers that be might look at it. Nick, you might know more than me regarding that one.
Well,
you could put in races. You could put in races that qualify, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You could say, the Welsh Grand National you can run, or the Classic Chase.
Yeah.
Automatic winning, you're in. Okay, food for thought as the Grand National entries dip this year, particularly from Britain. Racecourse water shortages. Well, Newbury had a problem earlier in the week because they weren't allowed to use the boreholes between the months of December and February because of a council edict, and that meant that Keith Otterson was suggesting that the ground was going to be much quicker yesterday than otherwise it might have been. They got away with it though, Jerry, just about.
Yeah, I don't think, from what I kind of spoke to a few people and stuff like that, there wasn't too many people kind of talking negatively about the ground, I don't think. I think they have got away with it, luckily. Like I said, it's just unfortunate that it is, and it's worrying what's going on with the weather and climate change and the way things are going, because I even think it affects even when you go to the sales now and horses you're buying. There's no point buying a big old-fashioned chasing type anymore, because you're narrowing your window of when you can actually run that horse probably in winter. It's like I said, we're in February and horses like tracks being watered. Like
Exeter good to firm tomorrow. They watered a bit at Warwick yesterday.
Doncaster was watered last week. It is very worrying, and I think it is something that everything's going to have to kind of change, and going to have to make a lot of tweaks.
Yeah, the climate change thing is very interesting, because the general received wisdom from climate change experts is warmer and wetter, isn't it, David? So we had a lot of wet winters, and now we've suddenly got a very dry one.
Yeah, I don't know if this is climate change or if this is just a weather pattern of a certain period of time. And I'm not a climate change denier. I'm just merely saying that people always reach for climate change in horse racing when the ground isn't what we expect it to be. And I would venture to say there have been plenty of times in the past when the ground hasn't been what we expect it to be. Yeah, I mean, Newbury did get away with it, I think. That was, Keith Otterson, there was definite sort of management of expectation there, wasn't there, at the start of the week? And on the whole, it was a competitive card. Yes, the game spirit and the Denman Chase didn't have horses that are obvious candidates for Cheltenham, but they got away with it. So yeah, it's a difficult one. This I don't know. We're apt to have a pop at Clark's the courses when they overwater, etc., etc. But I certainly wouldn't want to be in their shoes doing the job that they've got to do this winter, I suppose.
A very interesting point Jerry made there about what you do when you approach buying horses at the sales for different types of ground. Right, let's talk about the Mayor's Hurdle for Honeysuckle. One last hurrah for Honeysuckle in the Mayor's Hurdle. Right decision, wrong decision?
I suppose at least we're getting to see her again. I think that was very important because I think as you were at the Dublin Racing Festival, I think I was kind of just listening to your interviews and stuff like that, and the immediate kind of impression I was getting was that during like the coming 2 or 3 days after the race that we were going to see the retirement of Honeysuckle. Not that she should be, but that was kind of the initial kind of the response I was kind of taking from the whole thing. But at least we're getting to see her again. I suppose you'd love to see her try to defend her crown, but they've decided to go the mare's route, which is not going to be an easy task in itself, especially this year. Like the strength and depth in that mare's race this year is very strong. But yeah, like I said, I'd love to see her line up in the champion hurdle, but she's not going to. And no, she's going to be. It's going to be a brilliant mare's race this year. It's going to be one of the best races of the festival, I think. It's all gone topsy turvy, Dave. Do you like it or not?
No, I don't like it. I think that a well-intentioned policy of the mayor's programme has taken us to a place that we don't really want to be. The mayor's chase on Gold Cup Day has got, I think, the market's dominated by 2 Irish mares who are novices. I think they've won 4. They're unbeaten in, I think, 4 or 5 races between them over fences. It's a very strange situation, this, where the winners of the last 3 champion hurdles are running in the mayor's race, and I think that's taken us down a road we don't want to be. I completely respect the right of any owner to run in whichever race they want. If they, I don't like the idea that everyone must have prizes. I think that you can go to a championship meeting and be defeated in a championship race and feel proud and feel that what you've seen is beautiful, that your horse has run 3rd or 4th in a really good renewal of the champion hurdle. Personally, I like to think that I would go that way, but this is just because there are now too many opportunities at the Cheltenham Festival. Horses can duck and weave.
Crowds at the Dublin Racing Festival, they were very, very good. Up north of 18,000 the first day, 15,000 odd the second day, up significant percentage on last year. Jerry, what are they getting right?
I suppose it comes down, the honest answer is they're getting good racing. I think that's one of the massive. And I think it was very interesting the amount of British people that went across.
Over 1 in 4, 28%. I think.
Yeah, and fair enough. They're probably going across for just a weekend away as well. But they were going across because there was brilliant racing on there, and it was. I just think that festival just slots in very well time-wise, preparations for Cheltenham and stuff like that. But I just think the honest answer is that the racing was very, very good.
I remember, Dave, not that long ago, 15, 16 years ago, you could do a Cheltenham preview night in Ireland, and you could come back here and you could talk about these horses in Ireland as though they were some mystical beasts from a land far away. Now everyone knows, and it's so much better now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've only missed the COVID Dublin Racing Festival. I like to go every year. I think it's a fantastic spectacle. It's also very useful for trying to get quotes and stuff for our big Cheltenham pull-out. It was very interesting, I think, talking to British racegoers at Leopardstown. They were saying that you can get a really good weekend in one of the world's most fantastic cities of Dublin. You're not paying 900 quid for 4 of you to sleep in one of those container things with no toilet.
Some bit of corrugated iron in the field.
It's a really good experience. They also, a couple of people said to me, there is no bull with the way that this is, the horse is front and centre. There's not a lot of other marketing twaddle that they don't think racing needs. Obviously, some people do think it needs. They basically said this is everything a race meeting should be, and nothing that it's not. It's done it incredibly well. And it's in a way it's fortunate that you've got 2 days. As I think Richie Forrestal said in the Racing Post, you can remember the names of just the winners of just about every race, which you can't do at Cheltenham.
But of course, the sport always craves a new audience, and it has been craving a big Netflix-style production for a long time. Netflix are in, courtesy of Box to Box, the makers of Drive to Survive. We've been hearing about this for a couple of years now. They're going down the Kentucky Derby route, and it's this year as well. They need to get going, start filming very soon. But it could be a very interesting project.
I always pull my hair out on Kentucky Derby night when people always say it's social media. You know that obviously you have huge experience in America, and the Kentucky Derby walk before the race.
The walkover, yeah, from the stables to the paddock.
And you walk and interview connections, don't you, as that?
Yes, and there'd be 4 or 5 of us, and we'd take a couple of horses each, and we get like 8 or 10 connections on the way over.
And you've come across some fascinating people.
Always a different character.
Steve Coburn,
California Chrome Man.
Yeah, very interesting people. And people take to Twitter and say, "Oh, why don't we do that in Britain?" You think, well, mate, we're dealing with the Coolmore Triumvirate, or we're dealing basically with Middle Eastern rulers who are not as accessible as the good old boys.
And probably aren't at the races.
Might not be at the races. But in any case, you can't just shove a microphone in their faces as you... let's just say that the people in America are more accessible. I think it's really interesting that Bob Baffert's role in it. What role will Dettori have? Because his Kentucky Derby mount has been ruled out, I believe. Is that right?
Well, I mean, he's got plenty of time to find himself.
Find another one, of course.
Yeah.
And with Bob Baffert, he will have those horses who will then go to other stables before running at Churchill Downs. That would be an interesting one. Newbies watching that might think, well, why are these horses leaving this guy's stable?
If you're going to do something, you need to be an open book, don't you? Otherwise, the documentary's not as good.
Yeah, definitely. Like, so you want to just and I think that was very good about Drive to Survive. You saw
warts and all.
Yeah, you just especially with the drivers, how competitive and how cutthroat it was. If you weren't performing and you were given a window to up your game, or else you were out, and especially because there was so much money in GP as well. The owners, they weren't. I just think it'll be very interesting, and it'll be brilliant. Hopefully, brilliant for the industry.
Yeah, we've got to let them tell the story as well. Let the filmmakers tell the story. Not too much interference from too much management. White paper has been delayed because of the mini reshuffle. Won't be published now. We're talking to Andrew Rhodes, Chief Executive of the Gambling Commission. It won't be published now till at least after Cheltenham, Dave. But we're placing so much importance on when the white paper is released. Is that actually going to change anything anyway when it is?
Well, we'll see. But I mean, it's just a recurring theme, isn't it? How many times have I sat in this chair over the last year or so and talked about the delay to the white paper? It's sort of, racing's waiting for Godot, isn't it? I think I was in this chair a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about Paul Scully and his welcome pronouncement that it's not the role of government or the Gambling Commission to tell people how they can spend the money that they earn. This was particularly welcome because it was perhaps not the first, but certainly a rare intervention from government to say we don't believe in affordability checks, which of course have been covered widely in the press, and we've talked about them a lot as to why we think they are an unjust invasion into people's privacy, which is not replicated in other areas of commerce. But anyway, that was 2 weeks ago. Paul Scully was the gambling minister. He's now been moved to the Department of Science with Michelle Donnellan, who was the Culture Secretary. She's been replaced by Lucy Fraser, but we don't yet know, I think, as to the name, as to who's going to
We think it's going to be Stuart Andrew, don't we,
right,
the sports minister?
So we will see. It's just a long and interminable process.
Everyone's got involved in this. Nicky Henderson's got involved, Harry Herbert's got involved, Ed Chamberlain's got involved. Everyone's been on the front of the Racing Post talking about affordability checks. Yeah,
definitely, and they won't be adding my name to it because I'm a bit distant to it. But I just did think it was interesting with your interview with Steve earlier. He's a very good example of, he's a racehorse owner. He loves the industry that we all love. He likes having a bet, and he says he bets 2 or 3 days a week or whatever, and he goes racing. And he said he won't be comfortable with people indulging into his private bank accounts and businesses. It's just, like I said, I thought that was a perfect example earlier this morning.
Oisin Murphy, he's back. Friday the 16th, as it is?
On Thursday.
Thursday the 16th.
Yeah, it could be. Chelmsford City has an evening fixture, live on Racing TV. And it could feature Oisin Murphy. He's going to ride Missed the Cut for George Bowie.
In the Neom Turf Cup.
In Saudi Arabia. And this is, I think it's overstating it to say, the last chance saloon. He's a guy still in his early 20s, and we know all about Oisin Murphy's talents in the saddle. He's returning, of course, from a 14-month ban, which was handed down for misleading BHA officials as to his whereabouts when he said he was at Lake Como, but instead he was in Mykonos, and also the 2 failed breath tests at Newmarket and Salisbury. So he's back from that. Of course, there was the 3 months earlier in his career at the end of 2020, the cocaine ban. So it's not the last chance saloon, but of course this is a period where he has to get this right.
And the BHA have made stipulations and conditions of his return of licence, which is quite interesting, Jerry.
Yeah, and I suppose they had to be seen to be doing something as well, didn't they? And like you just think, like Oisin, like he's an incredible talent. We all know that, and he's had plenty of time off now. And I just think he'll let his riding do the talking. I don't think he'll be doing probably too many interviews and stuff like that. I just think he'll want to get back, get on with it. I've seen him riding out in Lambourne, and obviously it's interesting that he's riding a good bit for George Bowie, and that's been kind of documented. He's riding out there and stuff like that. And yeah, like I said, he'll have to come back, keep his head down, and he will, because he's an incredible rider, and I think he's a very exciting talent. And like with Frankie Dettori retiring at the end of this season, you need all these kind of big figures coming forward and keeping the game kind of in the average person's mind. You
just know that there's going to be a big old jockey merry-go-round coming pretty soon, with the retirement of Dettori and quite a bit more going on, and the return of Oisin Murphy. Those were this week's talking points.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.